Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Business Spotlight. I'm here with Fred Shockey of Winsell. Really interesting stuff we're going to talk about today. He's got a very interesting mind, engineer by trade. Now he's running a business that really helps other businesses do what businesses need to do to extend the life of their product. So before we get into all the nuances, I want to give you, Fred, the camera and the microphone. Introduce yourself. Tell us who you are.
Thank you, Scott. Well, I certainly appreciate the opportunity to share a few thoughts with you today and your audience. So I'm a hometown boy, a product of the Akron area. I grew up in Greene, went to St. V, and then went to the University of Akron, where I earned a couple engineering degrees and a specialization in polymers. So I've lived in and around the area for most of my life. I did spend a little bit of time, 1 year or so in Minnesota, where I worked for Newell Rubbermaid. And then I also worked in Chicago briefly as a runner in the grain room on the floor of the Chicago Board of Trade. The majority of my career, though, has been in the plastics industry, which isn't typical, people working in the field in which they were trained. But I'm one of those plastics nerds that kind of stuck with the program.
Love it. I
I
love it.
have
So
I've got a family, married, have 8 children, still 3 teenagers at home, and they keep me busy. I help coach some youth lacrosse and out there mixing it up with the young guys on the basketball court sometimes. So
All right, so let's reframe this real quick. 8 children.
yeah.
Okay.
So just to answer the question for anybody that's interested, we do know what causes it, and we're pretty good at it. So that's
Perfect.
I've had that question many times. Like it's a bit of an inane question, but yeah, we know
Listen,
where it comes from.
yeah, and you've got to figure it out. That's
Yeah,
fantastic.
we got to figure it out.
I want to tap back into something you said, which is unique. Um, you actually went to school to be a polymer engineer,
Polymer
and you're
engineering.
and you're in that space. It's rare because there's a lot of people that start businesses that don't have any connection to that service or that product. So why is it that you've stayed in this space for as long as you have?
It's a good question. So my first job out of graduate school was with Newell, and I went
Hmm.
from Akron to St. Paul, Minnesota, and I was a project engineer for them. And then I had an opportunity to come back to Akron and work with a company, Advanced Elastomer Systems, and they make like the squishy stuff on the toothbrush. And most
Yeah.
of it, it's not the exact material. So if there's any engineers out there, it's not, but it's similar to that. It's a material that's often it's used in the kitchen, like the OXO tool grips.
Yep.
It's used a
Okay.
lot in automotive under the hood. So it's squishy stuff that can be molded like plastic, but it's rubber. And that was developed right over there in Montrose. The initial R&D work was done, and it was a division of Exxon and Monsanto, a joint venture. Eventually, Exxon got all the assets and Monsanto got out of it, but I was in tech service for them. So it was around that time that I decided, well, I've had the benefit of some really great mentors and advisors over the years, and fortunately, God blessed me with the ability to, pay attention sometimes. So one of my mentors said, "You need to have your own business." And I did start one in 1995 while I was in graduate school. We were going to do research. And then over the years, it morphed into a materials business. But that wasn't my first business. I thought I'd share this story with
I'd
you.
love to hear this. What do we
Yeah,
got?
so my very first business was a partnership, and it was with my sister, and I was 5, and we made glue and toothpick art, and we sold it to Mrs. Thayer across the street. So we made our artwork, and we were walking down the long driveway, and I'm pretty sure that I figured this out a couple years ago, that my mother probably placed a phone call to Mrs. Thayer and said, "Hey, Liz and Fred are coming over there with some glue and toothpick art. Give them a little bit of change." So I don't know. I think gross sales of the business were maybe 25 cents, but we were off to a big start. So age 5, glue and toothpick art to Mrs. Thayer. We dominated that market too, by the way. Yeah,
Hey, nobody's going to question you were the number one. 100% of her market share was going to you and your sister.
that's right.
That's
That's right.
impressive. That's impressive.
Thank
I
you
love
very
the idea.
much.
Okay, so you cut your teeth early as a 5-year-old selling some
Yeah,
really eclectic art. So
yeah.
walk us down the pathway. How do we get Winsell to be the company it is? Is it the same company from 1995, just transitioned over?
Same corporation. It's the
Yep.
same employer ID number, the same number of the corp. We did rebrand it. It was originally called International United Research, and I had a collection of super smart PhDs and master's guys from the University of Akron. And one of them did for example, one of the guys did a simulation of a jet fighter tire landing on the deck of a carrier, kind of that crash landing. There was
Yeah.
another guy who worked for one of the Eastern European bloc nuclear physics departments. I mean, he could build a bomb. We had no interest in doing that, and we never pursued it, just in case anybody's listening about
For
that.
the record, none
Yeah,
of
for
that
the
took place.
record, we never went
Yeah.
down that path. So just about the time that I had started to go out and went to some trade shows and found some work that we could start doing through the network, everybody graduated and then they left school and got real jobs. So I learned one of the hard lessons of being an
Mhm.
entrepreneur. You actually have to pay people to get them to stay around. So that's an important thing. So eventually I began doing what I refer to as private label distribution. I was buying colorant for plastic, rebranding it as my own, and then reselling it to anybody that was a plastic molder. So injection molding, blow molding, extrusion, compounding, blown film, all the different processes. So I was working primarily in Ohio, Michigan, and Indiana, and went beyond that. And then I had someone ask me, hey, make this kind of product for me. And I didn't make that kind of product, but eventually they persuaded me. And now we have many products like it, and I've got a couple of them here to show you. So we're making these for lots of different folks, and they make things out of them like hot tubs or planters, faux rocks that you put over your utility in the yard,
Yeah.
those types of products. So we have a manufacturing facility located in Medina, and we are really committed to this product line. And I refer to the place as my polymer innovation center because we're constantly striving to get better and do what we do as well as we possibly can.
I love the idea that you have such a unique, I wouldn't say unique niche. You found something you're very good at, and not that you're exploiting it, but you found something you're really good at, and you're allowing people to take out your product and services and make their own product and service better. So you're not selling an end product, right? You're selling the components they use to create whatever they're making, right?
Yes, we are a plastic raw material supplier.
Yeah.
So our primary customer for that uses the product are their rotational molders,
Okay.
and they're all over we sell in the US and Canada. And I've had interest offshore, but just logistically it has never really worked out. But US and Canada primarily.
Okay. So Winsell came about in what year did you make the transition from the research piece over to Winsell?
Well, the trend on 2099. So it's
Okay.
like three years later, I started doing the repping business. And then I worked for somebody else briefly, but then in 2002, we burned the ships, so they say,
Yeah.
and never looked back. So it's been decades on straight commission. People ask me, like, what do you do out there? I'm like, well, I sell professionally, and it's like being a street fighter. I mean, it's
Mhm.
one-on-one, man-to-man, trying to figure out how we can help you create value one person at a time.
And okay, this is where I think the conversation really needs to grab some traction for the audience because you're talking about fighting in the streets, all that, but what value do you help your partners bring to their product? And it's because, and if I'm understanding right, you give them opportunity to change and be different than they were the previous years. And how does that come to be?
So maybe there's somebody out there that has a legacy product line and they
Yeah.
want to freshen it up. So without adding any new equipment, without adding any new CapEx for tooling or whatever the case is, we have developed the capability to create new product rapidly and help and like to use a very high interactive methodology in working with our people, like to get personal and make sure we understand exactly where they want to take the business and do our best to give them something that they could launch in 25, 26, 27, and just really add some life to their product line.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about how you do this, and it has to be an incredibly collaborative, investigative approach to make this work because you need to know exactly what the product is, what it does, what it's supposed to do, the confinement or the parameters that it works within, and then you're going to give them the next best thing, whether it's color or different sheens or whatever. I don't know what else all you can do with it, but it seems like you have to be very collaborative. Is that a good assessment of what you do?
On 100%.
Yeah.
And I would credit I'm a researcher by nature, all the testing points to that. And I'm also an achiever. That's my number one off the Strengths Finder 2.0 is achiever. I've always been a doer of things. So I have had the benefit of some really great training that taught me the way to help the people the best. And it really matched up with my natural inclination is to ask questions
Mm.
and doing a lot of talking in this scenario, but you're asking me questions. So to ask questions and listen at least by the following proportion: 2 ears, 1 mouth. Listen, act accordingly.
Now you sound like my mother because
Yes, well, I like that lady. She knew what she was doing.
that's how I was raised. Use
Yeah,
them in direct proportion as God gave them to you.
that's right. That's
So
right.
as we're going through this, let's think about some of the challenges. Obviously, from 95 to 99, you had this thing going on. People leave, big challenge. But since 2002, when you burned the boats, what is it that you would say is a good lesson that you've learned that you want to kind of let people know? This is what I learned and how I went about one, figuring it out, and two, getting it so it's something I don't have to worry about again.
It's emotional to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
There 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 can be moments when there are really heavy emotions. In the moment, something really great could happen, and you think, all right, like a stock, it's going to go up
Yeah.
forever. And then the next thing you know, there's some kind of black swan event and everything tanks. And you're like, oh, we're doomed. It's always going to be bad forever. So I think I've heard this, other people say it, and I agree with this. I've learned it in my own life. Things usually aren't as good as you think they are in the moment, and they're almost never as bad as you think they are either.
Yeah.
So what what I have found is having the resilience to sit in the emotion, good or bad, just do the next right thing, check the next box, keep moving forward, and eventually things will work out. I was with a friend last night who has bumped into some hard circumstances for his business and he has to sell it.
Mm.
So he was discouraged. He's younger. He's discouraged about what's going on and was asking me some questions. And I said, listen, I've learned that the opportunity of a lifetime comes along about once a week, which is different than I believe most people think. Like they think there's
Yeah.
one shot, you get one shot. And I disagree with that very much. Like there are, I remember 20 years ago, 30 years ago, everybody was getting jammed up because the economy grew a little bit or it shrank a little bit. And I would
Yeah.
always think like a recession, by half, the economy shrank by 0.5%. What are the numbers? So I don't know what the GDP is today. 30 trillion, something like that.
Yeah.
Just
Around. Yeah.
yeah, some $36 trillion is the debt. So 30 trillion is the GDP. So listen, if the economy shrinks and I don't know, we don't do $500 billion as much as we did last year, it's still 29.5 trillion dollars. There's room out there.
Mm.
There's a lot of business to be done.
It's a good perspective on it. The idea of your opportunity or the once in a lifetime opportunity comes along once a week. You just have to be open to it. You just
Got to
have
be
to be
open.
willing to receive it, right? Because whether your business is polymers or your business is um, accounting, you have the opportunity to stumble across an opportunity of a lifetime. If you're looking for it, you're not going to trip over it, right? So
Right.
sometimes you just got to fall into, wow, what an amazing opportunity I just tripped over. But if you're constantly trying to avoid things, you end up avoiding them. That's a really good lesson. I appreciate you saying that
I've
because I
had
think,
I've had some experience I also am active in my church. I'm a Latter-day Saint, and I've had many leadership roles there and different things that I've done. And I, at one point, was what they call the employment specialist. So somebody that would be out of work, or they were going through some kind of change or transition in their career. And I would hear things at times that said, well, I don't know if the Lord really wants me to get a job, or, kind of feeling a little bit victimized. Something bad just happened and they were down. So my advice to them would always be, listen, you don't think you have a job, but you do. You have a full-time job already, and that job is looking for a job. Get up, get ready, get out of the house, go somewhere other than sitting on the couch in front of the TV or near the refrigerator, because it's impossible when those things are around. Go out there and get to where the people are and start networking. Your job is 8 hours a day looking for a job.
yeah, it's a mindset change, right? Right? It's
Big
a
time,
complete mindset change.
big
When
time.
you have a fixation on it's always somebody else's fault, I can blame somebody else for it, or easily deny what's going on around you. You live below this point of absolute victimhood. And once you change your mindset to I'm responsible for this and I can overcome that, it puts you in a much different spot to be open to the opportunity of a lifetime. It makes
Yeah,
it easier to receive those things, and it changes the people around you and how they perceive you. Because right now, if you're in that victim mentality, who wants to hire you? But if
right.
you take a step forward, it really makes a big difference. And I put that into the same perspective of somebody who is a business owner or entrepreneur. As you said, it's an emotional roller coaster. You're constantly riding that thing. Today was a great day. Tomorrow it's going to be better. Maybe it's not, but it's staying the course and having the right mindset to say, I am responsible. I own this situation. I am accountable for my outcomes. If you live in that space, wow, your whole life is just completely different. You have an
Yeah, I agree.
opportunity to change.
Well said. Yeah, I
Yeah,
agree. For
yeah,
me, I think when the lockdown occurred, I
yeah.
call it the destructive government lockdown. So
It's
so when
very
that
different.
when that took place, there were a lot, I think that is very typical of a scenario that I've witnessed, in maybe not quite on that scale, but a lot of people just froze
Mm,
and they stayed home. I will tell you, I never stayed home once. Not a single day did I just stay home and quarantine or whatever it was. Some of my team members didn't want to come in, but we kind of stayed away from each other and we just kept going. So I just
mhm.
came in here and I worked, and I got on the phone with all of my key people, all of my presidents and other leaders and some friends. I dug them out from my past. I needed to talk to people. I did take about a week to really process what was happening.
Yeah,
And then I started asking them strategic questions like, what's worked for you in the past? How are you going to get through this? What are you going to focus on? So fortunately, we had some real lockdown friendly customers. Like, they were making things for the home. So we were busy during that
yeah,
time. So we were fortunate. And then I went back to those same people in 2022. So I asked the first round of questions in 2020. Then I went back to them in 2022 and I asked them, okay, you survived. How did you do it? What did you do? What did you change? How'd
yeah.
you get through that? And I just got a plethora of amazing input from survivors, people that thrived, and they had a lot of very similar thoughts and feelings of what I did. And that's obviously why they made it through that time period.
What would be then, Fred, the common thread that went through all those businesses that did survive?
A common thread. If I had to pick one word, I would say it's action.
Okay. And I,
They took action. And I've always been very action oriented
yeah,
out there. For example, I'll give you another story from the life of Fred.
I love
In
it.
my fraternity at the University of Akron, I was a Fiji there, Phi Gamma Delta. So we would have these fundraising opportunities.
Yeah.
And we happen to know the concessions people, so we got an opportunity to sell concessions, I think, at the high school football game, when they were running it over at the Rubber Bowl. So there I was, a hot dog salesman. I had my aluminum box with the flip top and my wad of cash, and I was out there shucking hot dogs. And I don't know if we could ever verify, but I'm telling you, I'm Scout Honor. I'm an Eagle Scout. I'm telling you, I filled that thing up 4 times, 10 times. I'm sorry. And it was 40 hot dogs per trip. I sold 400 hot dogs during that. And I'm confident it's a record, the Rubber Bowl record for most hot dogs.
I'm gonna trust you that you have a
Well,
green jacket somewhere at the University of
if
Akron for
there's
your hot dog
anybody
sale.
that has sold more than that, please contact me. You can find me online and we'll debate the point. Yeah.
Hey, sometimes you just got to get out there and do it, and that's
Yeah, so I think
what you're
that
talking
same
about.
mentality because I have faced other times when I've lost major customers. I have won big business and have had to respond. And sometimes it just takes high volume behavior, massive
Yeah.
action. I'm a fan of Tony Robbins, and he says that create massive results with massive action. And I had to figure out what that meant. But I agree. Like I've thousands of calls. I've been in hundreds of manufacturing plants all over the US and Canada. And I've met a lot of great people that have done amazing things. And that's what if you are action oriented, then you have a great chance at succeeding as a business owner.
Well, one of the things you made comment to earlier is being persistent, right? Just keep going. Do the things that are necessary to keep your business going, obviously, but try to do something different and take action on the opportunity of a lifetime that presented itself. Those are really good pieces of advice. Is there any lesson and or challenge that you want a new business owner to know you're gonna face this, and here's the best way to get through it? What's the one thing that you think every business has a challenge with?
Hmm. I have been the beneficiary of some really great coaching from Dan Sullivan, the strategic coach. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if you know Dan or not, but he teaches this lesson that was very, very impactful for me. He talks about avoiding getting stuck in the gap. So there's the horizon out there where we set our goals. And it's important to have goals because you have to know where you're going. So if you're in a
Mm-hmm.
ship and you sail toward the horizon keeps moving away from you. So like most entrepreneurs, we're always going to want to grow the business, grow the business, grow the business. And the horizon keeps moving out there. So if we measure our progress from where we are against the horizon, there's a strong chance we're going to be stuck in the gap constantly. And
Yeah.
that's a pathway to mental illness and depression. So what I was taught and what I have been doing is we turn back and look at the shore and see the progress that we have
Yeah.
made. So where have you been? Where have you gone? So it's not just a platitude or a trick or something popularized by yoga classes to have a gratitude journal. I mean, it really is
Mm-hmm.
important. The things that have occurred that you have done that keep you moving forward, it's mission critical. It's different when you're working for someone. They give you what you have to do. They make the decision. They give you assignments. You have to do what you have to do. But when you have to decide what your own work is, and then you're giving
Mm-hmm.
instructions to your team, that's a challenge.
Yeah. One of the things when you work for a company, you get a performance review every year. When you do it yourself, we are so eager to beat ourselves up because we may or may not have reached our goal, but we don't
Mhm.
pay attention to how many steps we took from the beginning of the year to the end of the year and really realize, wow, we took that many steps. Look where we are based on where we've been. Yeah, we may not have gotten exactly where we want to go, but look how far we've come. And that's a huge problem that most entrepreneurs and business owners can't get over is I didn't reach my goal. Okay, maybe your goal was set too high. I don't know. But if you're going to set a goal, you got to drive all the way to it. But don't forget about how far that journey or that path was from where you started to where you are right now. Because if you didn't take that journey, you wouldn't be where you are So you
I
need to
agree.
pay attention to how far you've come. And that's a really good lesson.
Mhm.
Really good lesson. There's an interesting perspective that most business owners have, and that is my business is so unique. I have the challenges that nobody else has. I want to hear your thought on that.
Hmm. Yeah, there are a lot of common challenges that
Hmm.
we all have. Uh, Similar sales challenges, pricing, competition, uh,
Hmm.
all the issues that happen there. Yeah, running a business, financial management, outspending cash flow. Yeah, those are hiring the right team members. I think HR is probably the biggest challenge that I have faced.
Why do you think that
Finding
is?
finding and building the right team. Well, I for years was an individual performer. I was an individual producer. And when it's just me doing my thing, selling somebody else's stuff, easy. Like I can hammer away at that and do a good job. Well, when all of a sudden I have to lead others and inspire them
Sure.
and play nice in the sandbox and follow the law. I mean, there's a lot of laws around employment law. It's so I
Hmm.
really had to, I had the benefit again. I reached out and asked for help. I hired people to help me do it. And then over time, I learned how to do it. And I had to develop some habits of doing a little bit each day. Fortunately, God blessed me with the gift of diligence, and I've applied that in this way too, and it's made a big difference.
I would agree. The biggest stumbling block most business owners have is the one you just recognized, and that is you need to ask for help. No matter how good you think you're doing, no matter how successful you believe you are, asking for help is not a negative. I always go down to the idea of Tiger Woods at one point probably is still is considered the best golfer ever, but at one point he was dominant for 12 years. He had more coaches on his staff that taught him and got him on the right thought process, right physical level, all those things that came out. He didn't do it alone. He asked for help because he knew if I want to reach this unbelievable height of being the best ever, I can't do this alone. If you want to have the best business ever, you can't do it alone. You have to reach out to either a mentor, a coach, anybody that can help you change your mindset and get you on the right path. It's all inside you. You just have to stumble across that opportunity of a lifetime this week and do something about it. I think business owners really have such a unique capacity to help others that they fail to recognize how much they need help themselves.
Yeah, no doubt. I agree with that completely. And it's in the record as far back as we have human history. I mean, people
Mhm.
would always go to the elder of the community and seek guidance and support and help. So just because we have the internet and all of the information available on Earth doesn't mean we still don't need
Yeah.
that kind of input. I have been enjoying several AI tools lately, and just because I'm a researcher and I like to ask those questions. So if I have something I want to know about, I have begun using some AI stuff. And so that gives another level of information and input that I can get, but that does not replace the human element and the human
Oh yeah.
touch. I mean, so
Yeah.
that to me is it's really important to have that connection.
Well, you could have a machine run your entire business for you, but it's eventually not going to be connecting to its customers. It's just a transaction. In order to be a successful business, I believe there's such a strong human element that comes out of it because we're building relationships. Yes, they are buying and selling. We're building relationships, solving problems, collaborating, building better products, innovating, all the things that come along with this unbelievable business partnership. The way you build your relationships is directly proportionate to how they build your business. If you're really good at it, you're going to have a really good business. If you don't build relationships, who wants to be around you?
Right.
So get rid of the transactional stuff and be human. And I think that's what's really going to drive businesses as we move forward. I have one
I
last question for you.
I agree. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to put you in a time machine and send you back to 18-year-old Fred. You're sitting on a park bench at the University of Akron. Well, you're going to sit down next to your 18-year-old self. And what advice would you give, or what would you say to your 18-year-old self?
Stay on the path, bro. Stay on the path. You're doing good. Stay on the path and believe in
I
yourself,
love it.
even if nobody else does.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Thank you so much for this incredible insight. Really good information, a lot of good nuggets. All the information to get in touch with Fred will be down in the description below. I encourage you to reach out, find out what you might want to do to get to know Fred, because he can probably teach you something. Fred, thank you so much.
Thanks,
And
Scott. I really appreciate it.
yeah, we'll see everybody on the next episode. Okay. Bye now.